Karamu is an introduced, highly invasive plant that is destroying natural ecosystems. My name is Amanda Bridle. I'm a member of the Main Creek Landcare and a veterinarian who has spent the last 10 years studying and researching wildlife health and conservation. I'm going to share with you the damage that Karamu can do to natural environments and, importantly, what we can all do together to help control it. So what is Karamu? Karamu is a native plant of New Zealand. It has been introduced to Australia and does particularly well in cooler, damp areas such as here on the Mornington Peninsula and in southern Tasmania. It is an evergreen shrub or tree with thick, glossy green leaves and can grow up to 6 metres tall. Karamu grows rapidly to create dense thickets that very quickly outcompete other vegetation. This means that no native animals can survive within them, as they don't provide suitable shelter, nesting material, or a year-round supply of food. If they cover sufficient areas, Karamu thickets can also disrupt the movement of animals through the wider landscape, which is vital for them to be able to obtain adequate variety of food, choice of nesting sites and shelter, and the opportunity to share genes so that they don't become inbred. Karamu has invaded large areas of roadside vegetation, many gardens, especially through the Red Hill area. It's invaded native areas that farmers have established to provide shelter for their stock and wildlife habitat. And now national parks like this beautiful Mornington Peninsula National Park have got Karamu in them, and they are at risk of serious disruption to their unique diversity of flora and fauna. A lot of work has been done across the Mornington Peninsula to establish wildlife biolinks across private properties, state parks and national parks. If Karamu is allowed to get a hold in these biolinks, the wildlife corridors would be severely compromised and thousands of hours of volunteer work and tens of thousands of dollars would be wasted. Finally, worryingly, Main Creek Landcare have found examples of Karamu crossbreeding with our local Indigenous prickly currant plant to form a new hybrid plant that is producing fertile berries. This hybridisation has been verified by the Royal Botanic Gardens through genetic testing. Karamu is presently in the initial invasion stage, a stage where concerted action could eradicate it completely. Left to expand, it will soon reach an uncontrollable stage. So we need your help now to identify and remove any Karamu you may have on your property or nature strip. First, let's be sure that we have the correct plant. Karamu has thick, glossy green leaves, most of which are opposite or symmetrical on the branch. The leaves are 5 to 12 centimetres long, oblong-shaped, with a sharp or slightly rounded point and a smooth edge. The leaf is narrow at the base and joins the stem in pairs. They are glossy green on the top and light green on the back. The midrib is not raised on the upper surface. The flowers are small, white, waxy and dense with 4 little petals. The female plants produce large numbers of oval berries which start green and turn orange to red as they ripen. Many of the berries are eaten by birds, which then fly to another area, pass the seeds out in their droppings, and new plants grow. The remaining berries fall to the ground and new plants grow where they fall. Berries may also be eaten and transported to other areas by animals such as foxes and rats. In this way, the Karamu can spread rapidly across a wide area. There are 2 native, locally occurring plants that Karamu needs to be distinguished from. The first is rough coprosma. It grows in scattered, localised populations of a few plants, not in thickets as Karamu does. This plant has thicker, darker leaves that feel like sandpaper on the top. They are broader at the base and have long pointed tips. It has bright red fruits. The second native plant that can be confused with Karamu is Mutton Wood. Mutton wood tends to grow into a dense grove. Its leaves are leathery, more elongated, and have a wavy margin. They are glossy green on the upper surface and duller green underneath. Its pale flowers are followed by clusters of purple-violet fruits. If you are not sure of the identification of a plant, please ask someone who is sure. Main Creek Landcare or Virginia Carter from Local Habitat will be happy to help. If in doubt, don't pull it out. Now we know how invasive karamu is and how to identify it, it's time to get rid of it. You can start by hunting through your garden, your property, plantations and roadside verges to find and identify any plants. In the process, if you come across sweet pittosporum or mirrorbush, the same techniques apply. Don't just stop at the karamu.
So when we're controlling weeds, it's good to protect ourselves, so we always wear sturdy gloves, eye protection and sturdy boots as well, long sleeves and of course long pants. As you can see here, we've got some just gorgeous intact ground cover. We've got a bunch of orchids around here, some of the sundew, the Indigenous sundew, some coprosma coming up. So you want to be really gentle with the way you remove these seedlings. I use a knife and just tease these seedlings out of the ground gently, and then replacing the ground cover and the leaf litter, brushing off that topsoil and hanging them up out of the way, leaving as little disturbance as possible. So we've got some larger karamu here. Again, intact ground cover, we don't want to cause too much disturbance. So we're just going to chase the base down and hand pull it gently out, getting all the roots as you go, shaking off the topsoil and replacing that ground cover in the topsoil. Minimal disturbance. Leave the roots out and up to dry. So with our medium-sized shrubs, karamu, the best way to go about them is cutting them down and poisoning them. So we just clear the area around here. Use a simple folding handsaw. We're using straight glyphosate in this spot gun to apply. You only need the tiniest bit around that cambium layer. See, we've got that precious ground cover, and once you open up the soil, weeds can invade into the area, so I always like to put the leaf litter back in the area and create as minimal disturbance as possible. So the spot gun's a great delivery technique to be able to use our herbicide. It's quite clean, and we can put a micro drop down on the woody weed. So here's a classic example when weeds get completely out of control. We have dominant species on the ground cover in the mid-story. They've just completely inundated any of the bushland. They're putting stress on the canopy trees, and we've got a basic monoculture here of karamu and pittosporum. So we're just going to frill. We're going round the base of the karamu, leaving gaps in between the frills, and then injecting herbicides into those gaps. So using your spot gun, careful not to apply too much herbicide so it doesn't drizzle over the sides, and inject that into your gashes. And we continue to do that all the way around. Well, we're doing this through spring, so the tree's really actively growing. So in the next few weeks, we should start to see the leaves wilt. And then over the next month or so, we'll start to see leaf drop. In a tree this large, smaller trees I just fill around the base, but in a tree this large, we just like to give it a few more hits. So probably a couple of hits either side, and just inject that herbicide again. You can see how it just sits in that gash. So another way of frilling and poisoning, especially with a larger tree like this, is using a chainsaw. Same method, we cut gashes in the base all around, and here you can see there's quite like a run of the root matter coming down. We make sure we put gashes into them as well. Then the herbicide just sits really nicely in those gashes you've made with the chainsaw. So we follow that technique all the way around the base of the tree. So by retaining these woody weeds and the structure, The habitat value is fantastic. Here we've got some clematis, the mountain clematis, using that to be able to creep up high and be able to flower and seed. So it's really important to maintain the habitat structure while we're weeding.
If you have karamu that is thick and impenetrable, such as this, then you will need something much more heavy duty, like a forestry mulcher. Please contact your local Landcare group for advice. If the karamu patch is on your roadside verge, then you will need to engage the Shire to develop an eradication plan, and you will need to work with the support of your neighbours, such as Main Creek Landcare did in Meekins Road. Again, if in doubt, your local Landcare group may be able to help and provide advice. You may also be eligible for funding from Melbourne Water Streams frontage grants. Once your karamu has been removed, it is important to follow up with hand weeding and possibly spraying of the regrowth that will surely recur for several years. The final step is the fun part, planting local Indigenous plants. Again, your Landcare group can assist you with a list of local suppliers of suitable Indigenous plants and also with contractors if you require help. Thank you for watching, and thank you for helping to preserve our beautiful environment. Every little bit that each of us does makes a difference, and we can leave a beautiful environment for the future generations to enjoy.